And we are back here on the GSMC football podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are now going to recap the final divisional round matchup here, and that is the Ravens-Texans game. So, going into this game, obviously, a rematch from week one. I did say, hey, these teams are completely different. Well, not completely, but they are different from the first time they played against each other. But this game ended up being worse than that matchup because the Ravens, they dominated this game. And it was 10-10 at the half. This was a competitive game for a little bit. But then the Ravens, they turned it up and they shut out the Texans 24-0 in the second half. So the Texans got the ball to start the game. They punted. Then the Ravens, they got on the board with a field goal. Justin Tucker from 53 yards out. So that put the Ravens up 3-0. Then both teams exchanged punts. The Texans then again answered with the field goal. So that was a Kaimi Fairbairn 50-yarder. Then the Ravens, they got a touchdown. Lamar Jackson connected with Nelson Aguilar for a 3-yard touchdown. Then in the second quarter, the Texans punted. Then the Ravens punted. And the Texans ran it back. A Steven Sims 67-yard punt return. So that was big in the game. So that tied it. Then the Ravens punted. And then the Texans, they got into field goal range, and Fairbairn missed a 47-yarder. So it was 10-10 at the half. Then the Ravens opened it up in the second half. 6-play, 55-yard drive. Almost 3 minutes of time of possession down the field. Lamar Jackson, a 15-yard touchdown run. So that put them up 17-10. Texans punted. Ravens then cashed in another touchdown. 12 plays, 93 yards. 7 minutes of time of possession. Lamar Jackson connected with Isaiah Likely for a 15-yard touchdown, so that put them up 24-10. Texans punted again. Ravens, another touchdown drive, 11 plays, 78 yards, 7 minutes, 10 seconds of time possession down the field. And Lamar Jackson, another rushing touchdown from 8 yards out. So that put them up 31-10. Then the Texans turned it over on downs. And then Justin Tucker kicked another field goal, 43-yard field goal. That ended up being the final score, 34-10. For the Texans in this game, their offense just could not get anything going. C.J. Stroud went 19-33, 175 yards, no touchdowns, no interceptions. They only ran the ball for 38 yards in total. Devin Singletary had 22 yards on the ground. Nico Collins had 5 receptions for 68 yards. Singletary had 4 for 48. Dalton Schultz had 5 for 43. The Texans defense had 3 sacks in the game. It was a rough go for their offense. And then for Lamar Jackson. So I thought he was going to pass for more yards in this game because he only passed for, I think, 169 in the week 1 matchup. Passed for 152. So he passed for even less. But it didn't matter. Lamar went 16-22 for two touchdowns, no interceptions, 152 yards passing. But the Ravens ran the ball for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns by Lamar Jackson. So Justice Hill had 66 yards. Lamar Jackson had 100. He was their leading rusher. Gus Edwards had 40. And Dalvin Cook, 8 carries for 23 yards. And he had a 19-yard run. And you're like, wow, okay, all right, Dalvin. And then after that, he just did nothing. So they got Dalvin Cook involved. But, yeah, the Ravens' running attack did its job in this game. And then in the receiving game, Zay Flowers was their leading receiver, 4 receptions for 41 yards. Rashad Bateman had 3 for 39. Isaiah Likely 2 for 34 and a touchdown. Aguilar had 2 for 12 and a touchdown. Odell Beckham Jr. had 1 for 12. The Ravens, no sacks in this game. So C.J. Stroud was able to avoid the pressure, but again, they just could not get anything going. It looked early on that maybe we might see another, bad loss by the Ravens in the playoffs because, it was a close game. But they turned it up in the second half. They really did. So credit to them for that. But also, I just said that. It was like, oh, this doesn't look good. We might be entering familiar territory with the Ravens in the playoffs. But at the same time, the Texans' offense was doing nothing. They could not get anything going. And I did say on Friday that, with the weather being bad, and I said, the Texans, they, have not played good in bad weather. They just haven't. It wasn't raining, but, I went back to the Jet game. C.J. Stroud did not play well there. They did have some injuries in that game, but still, didn't play well. And then in this spot, really couldn't get anything going. And they really couldn't run the ball. And I said, I have more faith in the Ravens rushing attack, which, I mean, a lot of people would say that as well. And that was the case. I mean, they ran the ball for 229 yards, Lamar Jackson, of course, is a part of that. Again, he was their leading rusher, 100 yards. The Ravens, they turned it up, and they looked really good in the second half. So, and listen, they were the 1 seed for a reason. And obviously you go back to a couple years ago when they, lost that game to the Titans, and the criticism on resting the starters the final week and had that huge layoff. Yeah, it looked like that was the case early on in the game. But like the 49ers, they were able to, get that rust off and, at least win for this week. Now you go into next week feeling good. Well, at least for the Ravens, I think you're feeling better, I would say, off of their win as opposed to the 49ers. The 49ers, they had to really, gut that one out. But the Ravens, once the second half started, I mean, the first half, I guess if you were a Ravens fan, you were definitely freaking out because the game was tied. But they turned it up in the second half. And, I mean, listen, they were just a better team. The Texans, give them credit. They, again, a team that wasn't really expected to do much this year, but they found their coach, they found their quarterback, and they are going to be they're going to be a good team. They just got to continue to build this team up, and they could find themselves back in the playoffs next year. But again, it's hard, and you never know what's going to happen with injuries and things like that. But they are the Texans have a bright future. So I think for them, they don't have to be. I mean, obviously, getting blown out in the playoffs, it's disappointing, and you don't want to lose like that. But again, the Ravens were the 1 seed for a reason, and they will be hosting the AFC Championship game next week, and that will be against Patrick Mahomes and the defending champion Kansas City Chiefs. So it doesn't get any easier, But credit to them, and what they've been able to do this year. It's going to be a tough matchup between, the Ravens and the Chiefs. And they haven't played each other in a while. The last time they played, similar to the matchup on the other side in the NFC Championship, it was the second week of the 2021 season, and that the final score of that was 36-35, I think it was. And that was the game where Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled as the Chiefs were driving to get into field goal range, and then the Ravens went for it on 4th down. In their own territory. Lamar Jackson picked up the first down, and Lamar Jackson defeated Patrick Mahomes for the first time. Because that was a big criticism with Lamar is, when his teams would fall down and be behind, do they have the ability to come back? And also not being able to beat Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes won the previous 3 meetings. But they got they got the win there. So yeah, I mean, right now, currently, Lamar Jackson is 1-3 against Patrick Mahomes. It's been a while since they played. I'm really looking forward to the game. Because a lot of people were talking about it being, everyone was talking about Mahomes Allen being the next Manning Brady. Before that, it was, about Lamar and Mahomes because they were playing each other a lot too. Yeah, it should be a great game. Listen, it's gonna be a true test, for Lamar now, because now you got that playoff win at home. Now you're gonna be playing the Chiefs. I mean, it's gonna be a tough game. It's gonna be a tough game. But the Ravens, their running attack, is the best in the NFL, arguably, even with the injuries this year. And Lamar obviously has played like an MVP this year. So, the Ravens and the Ravens are at home. It's not like they're going to Arrowhead. They're going to have Baltimore and that crowd behind them. So now we'll see Patrick Mahomes in his second road playoff start. And the other thing too is the Ravens have a good defense. They have a very good defense. And that's something that's been banged up the last couple of seasons. I mean, they still have some injuries on that side of the ball, but defense not so much this year. I mean, they are. That's what's held this team back the last couple of years is injuries. But, they've been able to get to now they're at this point, and we'll see what happens. We're 49ers and Ravens went away from that Super Bowl logo theory being legit. So next week, I think it's 3 p.m. Eastern time. The AFC Championship will be on first. So you got the Chiefs against Baltimore, and then in the second game, the NFC Championship game, I think that's 6:30 or 6:40 p.m. Eastern time. You'll have the Lions and the 49ers. So we'll get you set for that. We'll talk about it throughout the week, of course. But yeah, really exciting stuff. It was a great divisional round, of course. Again, this game, not so much. I mean, again, there was drama in the beginning, but imagine if Sims doesn't take back that punt return, then that game's the Texans don't even score a touchdown. I mean, they just could not get anything going on offense. But again, like I talked about last week, the weather and I think that was going to be a factor because the Texans were a different team at home this year, as opposed to the road. They lost to the Panthers on the road this year. They lost to the Falcons on the road. Even though the Falcons actually weren't like terrible at home. But still, like they had some and then of course, they lost to the Jets. Like they've had some bad road playoff losses. Well, the Falcons play in a dome, so that that kind of doesn't really matter. But still, like again, you see what I'm saying here though. But yeah, and it was going to be tough. I mean, you're going against the number 1 seed, and they just really they couldn't get anything going offensively. I thought early on in the game the defense was holding up, but they just they just really couldn't get anything going on offense. They just couldn't find it. But like I said, for them, like they have nothing to be ashamed about. I mean, they won the division. They won a playoff game. They have their quarterback. They have their coach. This team is going to be a problem moving forward. And, again, with all the older quarterbacks retiring and on their way out, the NFL is going to be in good hands for a long time with all these quarterbacks that we have. So, don't have to be worried about it. We're in good hands. So we'll see, what the Texans do in the offseason. But, credit to them on what they were able to do this year. But yeah, Championship Sunday, it's upon us, as we will again talk about it a lot this week, and we'll get you set for it. We'll talk about some matchups and things like that throughout the week, and obviously Friday will be when we do the picks and things like that. So yeah, we're now down to the final 4. So that's pretty much it for the show for today. Again, I thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you guys think about the games. What was your favorite moment from the games from this weekend? Let me know in the comments. And so with that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for watching. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Gruenfelder, signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care.